globalization. You will be taking classes, I'm sure, where you talk about federalism, and federalism involves a lot of different things, but I think among other things, I usually think of four things it tends to involve, and one, Madison put this very well, and he was talking about George V, I guess, and he was talking about Louis XVI, probably, and he said, unlike Europe, and that's what he meant. He said, here, this Constitution, he says, is a charter of power given by liberty rather than a charter of liberty given by power. Now, what does he mean? He means that the base of law, the base of legitimacy legally in the United States is the people, who are inherently free, and the central government has nothing more than they dictate. While he's contrasting Europe at that time, the base of legitimacy is at the center, the king. And they could be a liberal king, and you could end up at the same place we do, but always it would have been the center that would have given the liberty to the people, rather than the people who would have given the power to the center. Oh, that's rather interesting. And they when you just start talking about the EU, you see, that's sort of not so useless. Then we know that federalism involves, for example, trying to get things closer to the democratic base. People who are in their towns usually know the people they elected better than they know the senator. They may know the name of the president better, but they're unlikely to have him come door to door. He just tries to give the impression he does, but he can't see everybody. So from a democratic view, you're more aware of that pothole. That's why mayors are always talking about potholes as something that bothers you. And you can know who to call, and local education and so forth. So there's a democratic element to that, and there's a practical element to it. Purely practical, that if you're worried about the pollution coming up from the factory right over there, you're more likely to take action, and you'll have more effective action, because you know where to turn off the pipe, or you know more about it. So there's often areas where we know a lot more about how to fix things locally. And then, of course, what Brandeis said, let's have experimentation at local levels. Now you say, well, let's put those together, and you have something of an idea of let's start at the bottom. Let's start at local level, and then we have to sometimes give power higher up, because there are some problems that are certainly national, like having a national market. And you look at the Constitution in that way, you're looking at it in a federalism way. And my goodness, they happen to have a word called subsidiarity. It's an awfully long word. I think it has 5 or 6 syllables. And it has a Latin base. But they use that word actually to describe something similar in the EU. And therefore, once you see that, you can learn something, I think, from the way that they treat problems which are quite similar there to the problems we have. You're not going to copy them blindly. They don't necessarily have an answer, nor do we. But actually, you can learn something from seeing how they do it. Or if you start talking about particular cases, which Mireille mentioned 6, yes, we do have a lot of cases. If you start talking about the Warsaw Treaty, namely the treaty involving airline liability, you have to know how other countries apply those words, because it's part of our law that you're supposed to look at that. And moreover, if you want to know about trucks coming in from Mexico and whether Congress can block it, you better know something about NAFTA and what powers it gives to the president. And if you want to know whether a plaintiff who's in Ecuador and wants to sue under antitrust law a cartel that's in Holland and has one American member and wants to sue in New York, I wonder why they want to sue in New York. It could be treble damages. Don't tell anyone I have that cynical view. But nonetheless, can they take a jurisdiction or not? Again, you have to know how the EU works, because there's going to be comedy there in respect to their own antitrust enforcers. And you certainly better know how it works when the firm A in Los Angeles sues firm B to get information, and under a statute that gives them rights under certain circumstances to get the information, they say, why do you want the information? Because we want to give it to the EU antitrust authorities. And the EU antitrust authorities file a brief saying we don't want it. Okay, so under what are you supposed to do there? You have to know. You have to know, because that's part of American law. Very direct. And then common problems. That's what we've been talking about here. Common problems. Does that mean we all sit down and figure it all out together? No. Does it mean we have something to talk about? Yes. Does it mean we have answers? Not at all. But it's called a conversation. And we've just finished a conversation in the last few hours. Among other things we talked about, and this affects you,